She was screaming before I even opened the barn door again. High-pitched, panicked, trapped in the dark with 5 goats and the consequences of her own arrogance. Their hooves clattered on the wooden floor, their bleats echoing like a twisted chorus, while she begged to be let out. But I just stood there outside, hand on the latch, listening to the chaos she created. Because this wasn't just about trespassing. This was personal. Kerren had broken into my barn uninvited, unleashed my animals, and tried to paint me as the villain. But tonight, she was going to learn something the hard way. On my land, actions have consequences, and sometimes justice has horn's fur, and a name like Daisy. The sun had barely dipped below the horizon when I heard the clatter. A sharp, metallic scrape echoed from the barn like a warning. I froze where I stood beside the tractor belt, greasy hands hovering over a busted pulley. The wind had been still just a moment ago, but now a breeze crept through the trees, cold and sudden, carrying the scent of pine hay, and something else. Something wrong. My boots crunched over gravel as I approached the barn. A soft creak followed, by the low bleat of a goat confirmed what I feared. Someone was inside. My flashlight beam danced over the wooden frame landing on the barn door, slightly ajar. That door had been shut tight 15 minutes ago. My gut turned. I opened the door, fully bracing for a raccoon, or maybe a coyote, but it wasn't an animal. It was Kerren. She stood in the middle of the barn, holding her phone high like she was filming an exposé, her face twisted in smug superiority. Her expression said I was already guilty of something. These animals are suffering. This is disgusting. My mouth fell open as she stepped over a feed bucket and moved toward one of the pens. My goats perked up, bleating nervously at the stranger in their space. One pawed at the straw in confusion. Kerren, what in God's name are you doing here? This is private property. You can't just walk into someone's barn. She didn't even look at me, just kept filming, panning across the stalls like she was some self-righteous journalist in a war zone. I'm collecting evidence. These poor babies are cramped. It stinks in here. You think this is acceptable? I took a step forward, trying to keep calm, my voice low even. They're farm animals, Kerren. They live in a barn. It smells like hay and goats because it's full of hay and goats. Get out before you scare them more. That made her laugh, a dry, humorless sound. Oh, please, spare me the country wisdom. I've already sent the footage to my rescue group. They'll be here tomorrow, and you'll be out of excuses. Abuse is abuse, no matter how you dress it up. She pushed open a stall. A goat darted past her hooves, startled. Kerren yelped and stepped back, slipping on the scattered straw. The goat took off, knocking over a feed scoop in the process. 2 more joined it, slipping out behind her. Stop! You're letting them loose. But she was too busy filming again, brushing her blouse like it had been personally assaulted. You'll regret trying to intimidate me. I know my rights. I'm protected under whistleblower laws. I stared at her, wondering what parallel universe she thought she was in. My patience drained, like water through a sieve. You are trespassing, Kerren. That's illegal. You're putting my animals in danger and you need to leave. Now, she rolled her eyes. Don't threaten me. You think I'm scared of some hillbilly farmer? These animals are crying out for help. Another goat leapt from the pen into the open stall. They were getting riled up now, stomping and bleating nervously. One tried chewing the hem of her blouse. She smacked it away and then turned the phone toward herself. I'm risking my safety to protect these poor goats. Just look at this chaos. It's a madhouse in here. That's when something inside me snapped. Stepped back through the barn doors, grabbed the iron latch, and swung them shut. The thud echoed like a final word. I slid the bolt into place. Kerren's voice immediately rose from inside sharp and panicked. "What are you doing? You can't lock me in here. That's illegal." I took out my phone and calmly started dialing the sheriff's office. "You broke into my barn, Kerren. You let out my goats. You refused to leave. I'm not going to wrestle you. So now we wait for someone who's paid to handle stubborn trespassers. You're going to jail. Do you hear me? Jail." Her voice had turned shrill, bouncing off the wood. Something crashed inside. Maybe she kicked a feed bucket again. Maybe a goat kicked her. Either way, I wasn't worried. You should have left when you had the chance. I leaned against the post, watching the last blush of twilight fade into darkness. The goats inside had settled down, some curious, some annoyed, and one quite possibly plotting revenge with a headbutt. Kerren kept shouting threats mixed with frantic complaints. "This is cruel and unusual. They're climbing on me. This one smells like death." I smiled for the first time all day. It wasn't even the good goat yet. She hadn't met Daisy. That one had a mean head and zero patience for nonsense. I ended the call with dispatch after explaining the situation. The woman on the other end chuckled, said a deputy would be here shortly. I hung up and took a deep breath. Inside the barn, the chaos had taken on a rhythm. Kerren shrieking, goats bleating, and something thumping repeatedly against a wall. Maybe her pride. I leaned closer to the door, just enough to be heard. "Kerren, you wanted to document what it's like in my barn. Well, now you're getting the full experience." Her answer was another scream, and the unmistakable sound of a goat head-butting something solid. I pulled up a chair and sat by the barn door. It was going to be a long evening, but for once I was enjoying the show. Kerren's voice carried through the thick barn walls like a banshee lost in the fog. Somewhere inside she tripped over a trough again, or maybe she slipped on a pile of goat pellets. The thump was followed by a flurry of curses shouted, like they might summon divine intervention. I sat outside the door, arms folded across my chest, the cool night air brushing against my skin, and the stars blinking in amusement overhead. Let me out right now. This is a violation of civil rights. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew it would make her angrier. And angrier meant louder. And louder meant funnier when the deputy arrived. I was already picturing it. Badge flashlight Kerren covered in straw and goat drool trying to spin her way into victimhood. Another thud, this one against the door. I didn't flinch. She didn't know where the latch was, and even if she did, she'd never work it in the dark with goats nipping at her heels. "You're going to be sued. My husband's cousin is an attorney." That one made me laugh. Not out loud, just a soft chuckle under my breath. Her husband left her 3 years ago. Everyone in town knew, including the sheriff. The barn lights were off. That was intentional. She wanted to play rescuer, let her do it in the dark where the animals lived. Her phone flashlight flickered once through the crack in the wood, then vanished. Something's chewing on my hair. I figured that would be Daisy. She had a thing for shiny earrings and judgmental blondes. Kerren's voice dropped to a mutter, then surged again with renewed outrage. "This is kidnapping. You can't hold someone against their will." I finally stood, brushed off my jeans, and walked to the side window of the barn. It was barred for ventilation, but open enough for sound. "Kerren, you broke into my property. You refused to leave. That's trespassing and animal endangerment. You've got 5 goats loose and a spilled bag of grain that's going to make one of them sick. So, yeah, I locked the door. For their safety. And mine. I was documenting abuse. You were snooping. You wanted drama. And now you've got it. Try explaining that to the sheriff. A pause, then softer. Are they supposed to be climbing the walls like that? I raised an eyebrow. They're goats. Kerren, a loud bleat followed by a crash made me wince. Probably the shovel rack. She must have backed into it. More curses followed. You'll be hearing from my followers. I've got an online group, over 500 strong. They know I'm here. Let them come. I'll give them a tour. That shut her up for a few seconds. Then a plaintive whimper like she'd finally realized the goats weren't going to comfort her. They were going to treat her like an intruder. Which she was. In the distance, headlights crested the hill. A slow roll of gravel and crunch told me backup had arrived. I waved the flashlight in one hand, signaling. The cruiser pulled up and parked. Deputy Hicks stepped out, adjusting his belt with the weariness of a man who had already handled 3 domestic calls today and was hoping this one involved no paperwork. He raised an eyebrow as he approached. This the animal rights vigilante I heard about? I nodded and motioned toward the barn. She let herself in, claimed she was rescuing goats. I locked the door to keep her from doing more damage. He sighed. She hurt anything. Mostly her own pride. Maybe a feed bucket. He knocked on the barn door once with authority. Ma'am, this is Deputy Hicks of the County Sheriff's Department. You okay in there? Kerren's voice shot out instantly like she'd been rehearsing. Thank God you're here. This man locked me in with wild animals. I've been assaulted. I demand he be arrested immediately. I watched Hicks close his eyes for a second like he was praying for strength. Ma'am, did you enter this property without permission? That's irrelevant. I was gathering evidence of abuse. Did he threaten you? No, but he locked me in after you refused to leave. Because I was protecting livestock by releasing them from their pens. There was a pause, a long one, then a sniff. They looked sad. Hicks turned to me and shook his head slightly. How many got out? 5. One is currently trying to chew her way through the emergency exit. He cracked the door slowly just enough to slide through, and then closed it behind him. Inside came the sounds of controlled chaos. A commanding voice, her objections a startled yelp when a goat probably jumped on her again. Then quiet. Then the door opened. Kerren stood there disheveled and wide-eyed, her designer jacket stained with straw, and something that looked suspiciously like goat spit. Daisy was behind her, still chewing. You're free to press charges, Hicks said, without inflection. I looked at Kerren, looked at the goats, then shook my head. No, let her go. The goats already delivered the punishment. Kerren tried to compose herself, brushing off her sleeves and straightening what was left of her bun. This isn't over. You'll regret humiliating me. I gave her a tight smile. You did that all by yourself, Kerren. She stormed past me, stumbling once on the gravel before huffing toward her car. Hicks followed her just long enough to ensure she didn't run over the mailbox. When he returned, he looked around the barn, noting the spilled feed, the loose goats, the chaos. You really want to deal with her again? No, but if she comes back, I've got a llama stall she can visit next time. He chuckled and clapped me on the shoulder. I'll file the report. For now, just get the goats rounded up, and maybe put in a new lock. As he drove off, I looked back at the barn. One goat sneezed, another head-butted the feed bin. Kerren's perfume still lingered in the air somewhere under the stronger scent of hay and misjudgment. And somehow, I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. The next morning, I woke to a flood of notifications buzzing across my phone screen like angry hornets. Missed calls, emails, and social media tags lit up every app. Kerren had wasted no time. She posted a dramatic 10-second clip of herself trapped in my barn with shaky camera angles, goat bleats, and her whisper-screamed plea for rescue. The caption was pure gold. Local farmer locks woman in filth barn to hide animal abuse. Strutter video had been edited, of course. Gone were her smug declarations and the part where she released 5 goats like a toddler in a petting zoo. Instead, she looked frightened, trembling as if she had just escaped a war zone. Her followers, those precious 500 she'd mentioned, latched onto it like wolves. The comments were as ridiculous as expected. He needs to be shut down. This woman is a hero. Call PETA and the news. Immediately and there. At the center of it all was Kerren, basking in victimhood, grinning beneath every outraged response, like she'd finally found her stage. She had even scheduled a live stream that afternoon titled, "The Truth About My Ordeal Inside the Death Barn." I sat at my kitchen table, sipping black coffee, watching her build her circus. I wasn't angry, not exactly, just stunned at how far she was willing to go for attention. But that's when it clicked. She wanted a show. Fine, I'd give her a finale. First, I called the sheriff's department. Hicks picked up, and I laid it out. She's spreading false claims. The footage is edited. She's framing it like I locked her up to hide something. I need to get ahead of this. Hicks sighed again, like he was aging 10 years every time Kerren's name came up. You got cameras on the property. Barn cams. Full night coverage. Audio, too. Then post it. People love the truth when it comes with drama. I smiled. Thanks, Deputy. Time to edit some content. By noon, I had stitched together my own video. Raw security footage from the barn entrance showed Kerren creeping in phone, already recording. Then the moment she opened the stall and startled. The goats. The chaos. The squeals. Her shouting nonsense about civil rights while stepping on a trough. Then my call to the sheriff. Calm, legal, professional. At the end, I added her voice screeching from the shadows about something chewing on her hair. For flair, I dropped in a subtitle under the goat's face. Daisy, Justice Administrator. I uploaded the video and titled it, "Kerren Broke Into My Barn," so I let the goats handle it. Then I shared it to the local town group, the Farming Board, and a few of Kerren's beloved activist hashtags. By the time her live stream started, my version already had over 2,000 views. Kerren sat before her phone with dramatic lighting and a teacup in hand like a wronged royal. She started slow describing her trauma, the emotional toll of being trapped with aggressive livestock, and how she feared for her life. She even shed a tear. Then the comments started to shift. Wait, isn't this the woman from the goat video? Is that the lady who screamed about civil rights? To a barn animal, Daisy was iconic. Kerren's face twitched. She tried ignoring them, but more rolled in. Lady, you broke in and got headbutted, lol. Why'd you even open the stall? Just admit you messed up. Her jaw clenched. She ended the live stream in a panic. Too late. The clip had gone viral. 30. Next day, I had news vans on my gravel driveway. One reporter even asked if Daisy was available for an interview. I said she charged in goat treats. I walked them through the barn, showed them the pens, the clean hay, the clear water buckets, and the grain storage. I even let them film the camera footage and asked them not to cut it. Transparency wins. They loved it, laughed even. By the time the story aired, Kerren was toast. The headline wasn't what she hoped for. Viral goat justice. Woman breaks into farm and gets locked in with her own lies. She tried damage control, posted apologies that weren't really apologies, claimed the video was taken out of context and that she had been manipulated. But screenshots don't forget. Neither do goats. The sheriff's office issued a public statement confirming no abuse was found and that the woman in question had trespassed and disrupted livestock care. Her online group split into factions, half embarrassed, and the other half deleting their posts in silence. And the cherry on top, Kerren's HOA, caught wind of the whole debacle. Turns out they didn't appreciate being dragged into her antics. She had used their name in a few posts to bolster her claims. Now she had a formal complaint from them too. It was poetic, really, but it wasn't just about revenge. It was about showing people like Kerren that the truth doesn't bend just because someone yells louder or cries on camera. Still, I wasn't finished. There was one last move left. One final turn of the screw that would make it all sing. And that's where the billboard came in. It took 3 days to finalize the billboard design, and only one to have it installed right at the edge of town, by the main highway just past the gas station and the feed store where every commuter and curious tourist could see it from a mile. Away, bold letters across the top read, "Warning, do not trespass. Goat justice will be served." Beneath it, a still frame from the security footage. Kerren frozen mid-scream, while Daisy launched herself toward her hair teeth bared in what could only be described as divine fury, and right below that, the caption. Property protected by local livestock and viral footage, it was glorious. The image spread across social media like wildfire, reposted by everyone, from animal lovers to meme pages to a minor celebrity who tweeted, "Daisy is my spirit animal." Even the sheriff's department shared it with a laughing emoji and the tag "Goat-level security." Kerren's silence was deafening. Her once buzzing social media pages were either set to private, or abandoned. Her followers had either mocked her or migrated away. The support group she bragged about collapsed into digital rubble, leaving behind a few dusty threads and deleted comments. I'd see her occasionally at the grocery store lurking. By the organic aisle had pulled low sunglasses indoors, moving quickly with a cart that squeaked with every step, like it was trying to apologize for her presence. She never made eye contact. One day, she passed by me outside the post office. She slowed, just a bit hesitated, like maybe she wanted to say something, then looked past me as if I were invisible, and scurried away, clutching a box marked "Fragile." Like her ego, I didn't follow. I didn't speak. She had been her own undoing. That billboard stayed, up for 2 months, fully paid and renewed by popular demand, even funded by a local BBQ joint that added a goat-themed combo meal in Daisy's honor. It included a goat cheeseburger and fries called the Lockup Special. And business for me had never been better. People stopped by just to see the barn, the infamous door, the goats who had become local celebrities. Daisy, in particular, had her own Instagram, now managed by my niece, who had a knack for captions and kept the followers laughing. I leaned into the attention-hosted farm tours, handed out goat justice stickers, and raised funds for a new roof on the animal shelter across town. What started as a nuisance became a movement, a celebration of rural humor, of standing your ground without ever raising a hand, just with livestock and a well-placed lock. But behind all the laughter, there was something else, a deeper satisfaction that went beyond viral videos and clever billboards. Kerren had come here with an agenda: to control, to shame, to make herself the star of someone else's life, without invitation, without consequence. She underestimated what happens when you provoke someone who's patient and prepared, and who loves their animals more than they care about drama. She thought being loud meant being right. She thought the internet would protect her from reality. She thought goats were docile, and she was wrong on all counts. Late one evening, long after the dust had settled, and the last news van had packed up, I stood by the barn. Again, the door newly painted, the hinges oiled, and the stalls locked up tight. The goats rested peacefully, heads nestled in hay, except for Daisy, who wandered to the gate, nuzzled my hand, and gave a soft snort, as if asking if more idiots were coming. I laughed, knelt beside her, and scratched behind her ears. No more villains today. Girl, we already won. The sun dipped low, casting golden light through the slats. The air smelled of straw and earth, and victory earned not through force, but through cleverness and resolve. Somewhere in the distance a car sped down the highway, its passengers no doubt passing the billboard, chuckling, maybe shaking their heads, maybe wondering if the story was true. And it was, every word. Kerren broke into my barn, so I locked her in with the goats until the sheriff arrived, and justice was served by hooves and horns and a well-timed viral post. Some stories don't need embellishment, just the right audience and the right ending. And this one ended exactly how it should, with peace in the pasture, laughter in the air, and Daisy still chewing on the memories of a trespasser who thought she was in charge, but learned the hard way that the barn bites back.